Hello, BookTube. It's Friday, so it's time for Friday Reads. Hasn't been a great reading week again. I'm still not filling up to par, but most of my reading this week was nonfiction, which I'm still struggling with brain fog, but I'm trying to persevere, and I'm going to be fitting some of that in every week now to a lesser or greater extent. But I'm still working on. I will have the book to film episode up tomorrow for Greed. So I'll go through what I've read this week. Plus, I've got two new books in the post, so that I'm quite excited about both of them. I have, as I said, I've been reading. I read a week or so ago. I read 2 weeks ago now. It is I read McTeague, 1899 by Frank Norris, and that was put that aside. That was the basis for Eric von Stroheim's 1924 film Greed. And I've recently found in my piles a paper. This is the paperback of his Scream. It's almost 350 pages long. It's got some stills in it, so I've been looking through that a little bit too. I haven't read it from cover to cover this time. I have done through in the past before I ever actually saw the reconstructed version. So yes, there's a lot of photos, but there's just look at the text that's in it. It's just quite amazing. So that was nice to look at, and also too, I found at the same time was I forgot I had the Norton Critical Edition of McTeague. This is fabulous. This is a fabulous edition. I'll talk a little bit about it a little more tomorrow because a little bit about the history of the book, the publication, and so forth, in the aftermath of McTeague that I'll add in. But there's the text of McTeague, and the rest of that is all supplementary material, mostly critical apparatus for the novel, a little bit about the film. So I have not read everything of that. I will be eventually, but I'm not going to go that deep into the book. It's just I don't have time in this video. This is one of a book and film that I could go hours talking, and there's that much material, but I gotta shrink it down. And also other secondary material is I've been reading sections from Vaughn, The Life and Films of Eric von Stroheim by Richard Kozarski. I think that's the pronunciation. This is a paperback edition. It's an updated one. This is Limelight Editions, New York, 2001, originally 1983. And the originally was published under the title The Man You Love to Hate, which is also a documentary that was done by Kozarski as well. It's got a really good, at least it doesn't say here that it's but as far as I think it is, I think there's a lot of new material in here that wasn't in the original. But it's got a really good chapter on greed, so that was really good. I read that closely and reread several parts to make sure I understood it. I revisited this year BFI essay, BFI Film Classics. And this is Jonathan Rosenbaum, originally done in 1993, reprinted in 1994. By BFI, while Palgrave Macmillan sort of do them now. They're very short. They're expensive for what they are. The cover price is about either $9.99 to $10.99. There's a whole series. There's still about maybe 10 that I'd like to get on classic film and some silent stuff as well. But I balk and refuse to pay £10 for these. I usually wait till I find them cheap. But this one's pretty good. The guy is over complicates things, but it was quite good. Another a good biography, or looks like a very good biography because I've only read sections of it so far, is Arthur Lennig's Stroheim, published by University Press of Kentucky, 2000. I bought this last year. They said it was brand new. They said it was a new copy, and it's an ex-library, as you can see. So, but it is readable. But I would not have spent the money if I knew that it was this ex-library. Uh, but I did get it refunded because I just said you lied. It's got a good chapter. It's got these were sort of the best two source materials, and they complement each other. But there's stuff that's in here that's not in here, and there's stuff in here that's not in there. So that's why it's good to compare. Uh, this here as well. I got this last year, and I'd only read the introduction. I got to read the conclusion because I have problems with the chapter I read on Stroheim. It's called Ethics and Social Criticism in the Hollywood Films of Erich von Stroheim, Ernst Lubitsch, and Billy Wilder by Nora Henry. And it's published by Prager in 2001. And the introduction is really good, and she sets out saying that she's going to do X, Y, and Z, and it's like, okay, that's interesting. How are you going to do it? I've read the chapter closely on Stroheim, and only a little bit to do with greed, but it was an interesting chapter to begin with. But she doesn't hardly, I don't think she does anything that she says, well, basically in the title, hardly anything at all. Maybe it's different for the other directors, and maybe she pulls something together in the conclusion. The conclusion is very short. I got to read it. It's only like 5 pages, but it might be the best things in this book is the introduction and the conclusion. The introduction is really good because it gives a lot of food for thought. Let's put it that way. But yeah, so that's what I've read this week, and the books that I've got. I ordered two. There's still one book that I'm waiting to get from the United States. I ordered 2 from the same bookseller, but only one came this week. This is The War That Won't Die: The Spanish Civil War in Cinema by David Archibald. And it's an academic press, obviously, university press. And 2012. By Manchester University Press. It's one of these that I dislike. I hate these plasticized cased covers. I thought for sure it was a print on demand, but it's not. But it's obviously not silent film. It's sound, and it's post 1936. Anything that's in here, and I think it goes up to the early 21st centuries, and it just basically says here, the war that won't die charts the changing nature of cinematic depictions of the Spanish Civil War. And it even talks about when the Civil War broke out in 1936, a significant number of artists, filmmakers, and writers, from George Orwell to Pablo Picasso to Joris Ivens and Joan Miro, rallied to support the country's democratically elected Republican government. And it just goes, the book's focus is on fictional feature films produced within Spain and beyond its borders between the 1940s and the early years of the 21st century, including Hollywood blockbusters, East European films, the work of the avant-garde in Paris, and films produced under Franco's censorial dictatorship. So this should be quite interesting. I've gotten an interest over the past few years in the Spanish Civil War, which I've never dealt any, or I never dipped into it, but it was ever since probably about a decade or so ago that I first read George Orwell's Homage to Catalonia, and that's why I'm interested in it, because I read that and go, this is fabulous, but there's a lot that I don't understand the background to, so I've been slowly, very, very slowly collecting a few things to read, and I'll dip into it at some point and start reading about the Spanish Civil War. So I thought, when I saw this, it was great. And the other book that I'm waiting is a book on the director of the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, Wine or Ween. I don't know the full pronunciation, correct pronunciation. So, and these are post Caligari films, I think. So I'm looking forward to that. But the one big surprise and I am just ecstatic about is this book, the other book here. It is big, oversized. It's almost like a coffee table book. Black and white bioscope making movies in Africa, 1899 to 1925 by Neil Parsons. It's got a foreword by Kevin Brownlow and published 2018, so it's relatively new by Intellect, Bristol, UK, and Chicago, USA. Um, I wasn't expecting something like this. It was dirt cheap, and it said new, and it was, I'm sure. When I got it though, like it was in a plastic envelope, just a plastic bag basically, and so it's got some dents in it because it was poorly made, poorly packaged. But I'm still happy with it. It was dirt cheap. Like, I mean, it was under £4 with shipping, so you can't complain. Well, you can, and I did a little bit because of the way they packaged it. But anyway, it's just fabulous. And Kevin Brownlow talks about um, in his forward here, which is really quite revealing. He says, I'll read little bits of it here. It's very short, but I have studied the silent film era for twice as long as it lasted, but until now I have hardly given a thought to early films made in Africa. I was fortunate enough 40 years ago to interview the great Hollywood cameraman Ernest Palmer, who had spent part of his youth in South Africa. He worked with the distinguished American director Harold Shaw, who I'll speak about briefly again here. Palmer went on to become one of the finest cinematographers of the silent era, as cameraman for such masters as Frank Barzaghi and F.W. Murnau. But he talks about, he said, he gave me his life story, which he had typed up. Those few pages were as rough as his photographs were precise. Yet, believe it or not, he left out all mention of his African experiences. Fortunately, he gave me a batch of pictures taken in South Africa, which you see in this book. This has made me realize that the hard job Neil Parsons has undertaken and how successful he has been in conjuring information from a long forgotten era. Um, and I'm always ecstatic when I get a silent film book like this that's on Africa. I've been looking one for years, and I missed this when it came out in 2018. But I've got silent film on India. I've recently got something that was sent to me on Japan. I've last year and earlier this year in January, I got a few things on Chinese silent film as well. So I'm always on the lookout for that. But he talks about one film here, which I watched last night on YouTube, and I'm glad it was on YouTube. A fabulous film from 1916. It's called the English title is Winning a Continent, and the South African title is Day Vortakers. Um, and it's by the aforementioned Harold Shaw, 1916. And this is what Kevin Brownlow says in his forward. He says well, I'll just read the whole sentence. It's the easiest thing. An epic of Boer Zulu War, which was staged on a scale more massive even than D.W. Griffith's The Birth of a Nation, 1915. And I understand clearly why he's chosen that, because Birth of a Nation, that's, just think of what that title means, and then winning a continent. This depicts the big trek in the 1830s, but more specifically the 1838 Battle of Blood River, and it's massive scenes, mostly outside. The battle scenes are fabulous. Uh, it's obviously, it's propaganda type thing of, white men against the savage black man. That's that's the thing. But looking at it from a cinematography point of view, it's a fabulous film. Even the acting's great because it's all understated. It's not the usual, wide gestured, silent acting that was popular and expected at the time. So it's just fabulous, and I just can't wait to dip more into this. It's fabulous. Like I said, I was expecting just purely a coffee table book with pictures, but this has substantial text, 2 columns, and lots of really high quality photographs, but then some that are not so high quality. There's a scene from the movie I was talking about. And it's just fabulous. Um, and it's a great book. I'm gonna enjoy this. Some of the photographs are a little less quality than you'd hope for, but that's not too bad. They're the best I think they could get. And it's even though I don't like this kind of covering for binding. I'm happy. I'm just so ecstatic to get it, and it's sewn. It's a sewn book too, so that's a plus to it. So it's you get something really good. So it's not perfect binding, so it's sewn. So it's just it's not just the aesthetic of a book. It's the durability of it as well. So and the contents is a large. Well, that's the major reason why I would get a book is the contents. But then you'd like to have something that's well made. Anyway, I won't get into a discussion of the qualities of bookbinding. But yeah, so I'm so pleased to get this. I hope this will actually show up as a thumbnail. I'll just hold it there for a little bit and keep fingers crossed. But anyway, I'm hoping that I will get to more reading back my fiction books this coming week and some nonfiction. And I will be doing my book to film, the McTeague to Slash Greed film, and tomorrow. And there'll be other videos that'll be going up through the week. I've got a few things planned. I'm continuing. I'll have another film on, or not video, film. I don't film stuff. It's video. Simple as that. Doing a video on science fiction. I've got, you can see here, Asimov's. It's the Robot series and Foundation. These are the newer sort of Harper editions. Fabulous, I think fabulous covers. Poorly made books, but they're fabulous covers, and that's the only sort of ones that I've got of Asimov at the moment. So I'll go through those, just showing the covers, which are kind of nice. And then I'm continuing the series Hours in My Library. I've already recorded and posted a video for next week, and I've already got 2 more books for the 2 next weeks to do. So yeah, so that'll be continuing, and I've got something else planned around George Orwell, but that hopefully will be sometime in July, earliest mid-July, but it could be as late July, but fingers crossed. I'll keep you updated. Thank you, BookTube, and I hope you have a good weekend.